In 1988, 19-year-old Tara Calico leaves for a morning bike ride and never comes back.
It was unheard of for any type of crime to happen of this magnitude in such a loving place.
Her small town bands together to search for her.
Months go on, no additional answers. And then one day, a picture pops up in Florida.
It was the picture that shocked the nation.
No one knew if the photo was a hoax or an ominous clue.
The girl in the Polaroid looks just like Tara, but is it her?
We thought it was her. We were so sure it was her.
After more than 30 years, are we any closer to finding out what happened to Tara Calico?
I believe there's people out there that know exactly what happened.
In 1988, 19-year-old Tara Calico was out riding her bike in her hometown of Belen, New Mexico, when she disappeared into thin air. Later, a Polaroid of a young boy and girl who greatly resembled Tara Calico would be found over 1,000 miles away, where the pair can be seen bound at the wrists and tape covering their mouths. Rather than helping investigators get any closer to getting answers, this Polaroid photo may have thrown the case into a much darker, more terrifying direction. Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. This is Case Closed, a true crime podcast with a focus on solved cases. I am your host, Brandon Brooker. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, or rate and review and follow on audio. Now, I know I did just say we focus on solved cases, but today's case is not a solved case. It's a mystery. And with that being said, let's jump straight into it. Tara Calico was born on February 28, 1969 to her parents David and Patty Calico. Not too long after Tara was born, her parents actually ended up getting divorced, and her mother Patty ended up remarrying a man named John Dole. Growing up, she lived with her mother and her stepfather and siblings in Belen, New Mexico. She graduated from Belen High School, and at the time of her disappearance, she had planned to study psychology at the University of New Mexico. Tara was known to be a popular girl, but she was like the nice popular girl. She was well liked by her peers, she was very athletic and always had high grades. She was described by her friend Melinda as being a friend to anyone, and that she was the type to do the right thing even when nobody was looking. She seemed to be just a very warm and kind person. During her freshman year, she began dating an old classmate of hers named Jack Cole. He was the captain of the football team, and the two had a lot of shared interests, mostly athletically focused, and they were very outdoorsy. As I said earlier, she was living with her mother Patty, her stepfather John, and her siblings in Belen, which is a suburb in the Valencia County of New Mexico. Belen was described to be your typical average American town during the 80s, where everyone knew each other and nothing seemed to happen. This quaint small town's safe image would be tarnished when one of its most loved residents would go missing without a trace. At the time of her disappearance, Tara Calico was only 19 years old. She was a college sophomore and had a 3.9 GPA. She had a very bright future ahead of her, a future that would cruelly be ripped away from her. On the morning of September 20th, 1988, she had planned to go on a 36-mile bike ride, which for Tara was not uncommon as she would often go on long rides pretty much every day. Tara had plans to play tennis with her boyfriend later that day at about 12:30 p.m. So she asked her mother Patty if she would pick her up on the route if she wasn't back in time. So Tara set off on her ride at about 9:30 a.m. and she headed from her home to Highway 47, where the majority of her route was. Now, on this particular day, she was actually using her mother's pink Huffy mountain bike that had yellow cables, as the tyre on her own bike was flat. When Tara hadn't come back home at midday, her mother stuck to her promise and went to go and pick up her daughter. Patty was very familiar with Tara's cycling route because they actually used to go together. However, she'd stopped going after experiencing a stalker. and she had begun to advise Tara to carry pepper spray. However, she refused to do so as she felt like her mother was being paranoid and a bit dramatic. So Patty had left at about 12 PM to go and pick up Tara, so she headed to Highway 47, but when she got there were no signs of Tara. She ended up driving the entire length of the highway multiple times in a panic, and when she couldn't find her daughter, she decided to head home in hopes that maybe she had returned while she was out looking. But when she got home and saw that there were still no signs of Tara or her pink bike, she decided to call the Valencia County Sheriff's Office to report her daughter missing. As soon as police were informed of Tara's disappearance, a search for her began. They had resources searching for her by both land and air. Search dogs were brought in to see if they could find any trace of her. Motorists were questioned to see if anyone had seen anything. The following day, a breakthrough came in. Tyre tracks and skid marks were found at the side of Highway 47. Nearby, they discovered footprints that led them to a cassette tape owned by Tara, and that was just left abandoned, as well as shattered plastic from the window of her Walkman. And it was reported that the rest of her Walkman was found over 20 miles away up in the mountains. It was looking like something terrible had happened to 19-year-old Tara Calico as she was riding down Highway 47. Witness accounts began to create what seemed to be Tara's last known movements. One witness said they had seen her riding her bike, listening to her Walkman, heading in the direction of her home at about 11:30 AM. Another witness saw her about 15 minutes later, only a few miles away from her home, still listening to her Walkman, but this time she was being followed by a white Ford pickup truck that had a camping shell over the truck bed. It was said that the driver seemed to not be in a hurry and that Tara hadn't seemed to notice that she was being followed. Again, she was seen only 2 miles away from her home by yet another witness. And again, this Ford pickup truck was still following her, and she still seemed to not have noticed. It seems like maybe whoever was in this truck may have been involved in Tara's disappearance. It's reported that there may have been more than one person inside this vehicle, with the driver being described as a white male between the ages of 35 and 45, about 6 feet tall, 200 pounds with red hair and wrinkles in the corners of his eyes. From this description, a police sketch was made. From the beginning, this case was treated as an abduction. Police were pretty convinced that she hadn't gone off of her own accord. But months would go by with no breakthroughs. The case just seemed to get colder and colder as the days and weeks went by. Everyone was left with more questions than answers. However, a terrifying discovery would be made that would flip the whole entire investigation on its head. 1,400 miles away in Port St. Joe, Florida, a woman was walking through a convenience store parking lot when she came across a haunting piece of evidence. A Polaroid photo. In this photo, a boy and a girl can be seen with black duct tape covering their mouths, and their wrists were bound behind their backs. From looking at this photo, it looks like the photo was taken in the back of a windowless van. As soon as this woman found this Polaroid photo, she handed it straight to the police, and she said that she had seen a windowless white van driving out of the parking lot at the time. Was it possible that the people in the photograph were still in the back of that van as it drove away? All this woman could remember about the driver is that he was a middle-aged man with a mustache, which unfortunately was a very common description for men of that time, with it being the 80s. This Polaroid photo was broadcast all over the news, and quickly people who knew Tara or who were just familiar with the case recognised the woman in the photo to be that of Tara Calico. Even her own mother, Patty, believed that the girl did resemble her own daughter, Tara. And she further believed this when she got a closer look. When Tara was younger, she'd actually gotten involved in a car accident that left her with a scar on her leg. A scar which can be seen in the exact same place in the Polaroid photo. Furthermore, a paperback copy of the book My Sweet Audrina can be seen in the photo, which was the favourite book of Tara's favourite author. An analysis carried out by Polaroid determined that the film used to take the photo was only available from May of 1989, meaning that the photo would have been taken no earlier than a month before it was found. Now, could this woman in the photo have been Tara? Yes, but this raised yet another important question. Who was this young boy? After seeing this photo circulating around the news, another family in New Mexico came forward claiming that this boy in the photo could have been their missing son, Michael Henley. Michael Henley was only 9 years old when he vanished on April 21st, 1988 during a camping trip with his father in the Zuni Mountains of New Mexico, and he went missing only 5 months before Tara Calico. These two disappearances raised multiple vital questions. Was there a serial killer lurking around? Or links to human trafficking? The Polaroid photo was sent to 3 different labs to be analysed to determine whether the woman really was missing Tara Calico. Scotland Yard determined that it was indeed Tara Calico in the photo. However, the Los Alamos National Laboratory contradicted this, saying that they did not believe it to be her. And finally, the FBI were unable to definitively say. Their analysis came up inconclusive. In the following months after the initial Polaroid was found, more Polaroid photos began to appear, showing a woman being bound and gagged. In June of 1989, a Polaroid was found near a construction site in Montecito, California. The image was pretty blurry, however, the woman had duct tape over her mouth and a piece of fabric can be seen in the background. Now, this fabric strongly resembled the pillowcase in the original image. And once again, Tara's mother Patty does believe this to be her missing daughter. Then again, in February of 1990, another photo emerged of a woman bound at the wrists, sitting next to a man on what seemed to be a train. Now, with this photo, Patty was unable to say with certainty whether this was her daughter or not. And many people regard this as an extremely distasteful prank, but there is unfortunately no way of actually knowing. June of 1990, that is when the unfortunate news that the body of 9-year-old Michael Henley was found, 7 miles away from the campsite he went missing from 2 years prior. It seemed that he had wandered away from the campsite and died from exposure to the elements. And this upsetting news did confirm that the boy in the Polaroid photo was not Michael, and this brought a lot of confusion to the public. People started to question whether this was even Tara Calico in the photo, and they began to pick apart differences between Tara and the woman in the photo, such as eyebrow shapes, which personally I think is a bit of a stretch, as someone who is being held captive is not going to have access to tweezers and grooming kits to maintain their eyebrows. For the next 18 years, the case would continue to go cold. In 2008, Renee Rivera, a Valencia County sheriff, who had joined the force only a year after Tara's disappearance, came forward claiming to know what had happened to Tara, and that he knew exactly who was responsible. So, I'm going to tell you about his theory, but I need to remind you that it is just that, a theory. So he said that 2 boys were just messing around in their pickup truck that morning when they hit Tara Calico riding her bike, either by accident or intentionally. The 2 boys kidnapped Tara and then killed her to keep her from reporting them to the police. He also claims that other people were involved in helping the boys dispose of Tara's body, and that she was more than likely buried somewhere in Valencia County. As I said before, he said he knew exactly who had done it, but that there was not enough evidence to convict them. Now, this is a very outlandish theory, seeing that he has absolutely no evidence to back up his story. However, Renee's story would later be backed up after Tara's original case files became public. 2 individuals were interviewed by the sheriff's office, and they both had the exact same story. A group of local teenagers had confessed to them that they had hit Tara on her bike that day intentionally so that they could kidnap, sexually assault and then murder her. Now, it has been claimed by Valencia County locals that all of the alleged suspects have passed away. There were also lots of rumours about a cover-up by the Valencia County Sheriff's Office due to one of the suspects being the sheriff's own son. Now, this is all just speculation, and the son was allegedly cleared of all involvement, but that doesn't come to any surprise because of course the sheriff's son would be cleared if it was a cover-up. In May of 2023, an interesting development was made. As I mentioned earlier, Tara's cassette and Walkman were found smashed. However, years later in 2023, the sheriff's office claimed that this was not in fact the case, and that this was a case of widespread misinformation. Following months, so in June of 2023, the Valencia County Sheriff's Department held a press conference stating that they knew what had happened to Tara Calico and who was responsible, but they didn't really offer much more information as they were waiting for the go-ahead from the District Attorney's Office to be able to press charges and move closer towards prosecution. Since then, there's been no further updates or information, which understandably has received a lot of backlash. People just want answers, and for Tara to get the justice she very much deserves. Now, in defence of the Sheriff's Office, which I don't defend the police very often, but if what they do say about the District Attorney's Office is true, then it would make sense why there's a long delay. I mean, the District Attorney has over 3 decades of information to go through in order to move forward, so that will take a very long time. However, people's frustrations are more than justified, especially the family of Tara, who just want justice for their loved one. Back in 1998, Tara Calico was legally declared dead, and the manner of death was ruled as homicide. With that being said, her mother Patty never gave up hope that her daughter would one day return home. When the family moved homes, they created a bedroom just for her, holding on to hope that one day she would walk through that door, but tragically she never did. To this day, neither Tara or her mother's hot pink mountain bike have been found, and her mother Patty passed away not knowing where her daughter was and what had happened to her. If there is any sort of silver lining in this story, if Tara is indeed dead, she and her mother are now reunited and enjoying each other's company once again. That is all I have for this case. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comments section. And with that being said, I close this case and I will see you all next time with a brand new episode. Goodbye.